Afternoon.
The focus of the Knowledge Management Forum today is the economy of the state of Qatar. IMF came out with a preliminary assessment of the 2014 Article 4 mission to Qatar this week. Earlier in December 2013, the Ministry of Development, Planning and Statistics had released revised economic data on Qatar. Tell us, Dr. Seetharaman, what is the recent outlook on Qatar economy?
I think it's a reaffirmation of the value proposition IMF has foreseen. Qatar is doing well, it's financially stable. We're talking about nearing $200 billion of GDP. Fiscal surplus, current account surplus, as a percentage of GDP, current account surplus should be nearly 30%. 29.6% is what has been foreseen. I think a similar trend has been depicted in the latest IMF report, which came a couple of days before. And again, inflation is measurable, 3.6 to 3.7%. Investable surplus and fiscal surplus as a percentage of GDP should be in the range of 11 to 12%, even though original forecast is around 6 to 7%. So the bigger picture is very stable and functional economy, and with the commodity prices going up, if you extrapolate, the consistency in terms of sustainable performance is there in real response to changing dynamics.
What would you say are the major drivers of Qatar's non-hydrocarbon growth?
Urban development, if you look at doubling the existing GDP, is the non-hydrocarbon. Hydrocarbon is going to grow only 1.5 to 2%. And real growth comes in airport expansion, seaport expansion, road, rail, network expansions. There's so much is to be done in modernizing the infrastructure with the growing population, with the growing commitments to FIFA 2022. There's a huge amount of non-hydrocarbon. So the sector's construction is going to grow in the fast track, 15%. Manufacturing is going to grow between 5 to 6%. Service will go between 12 to 14%. And again, banking over 10% has been banking insurance is doing between 10 to 12%. So these are the sectors which are going to drive, and oil and gas versus non-oil and gas. If you look at it, the revenue expansion is there in the non-oil, but there is a deficit financing when it comes to non-hydrocarbon. That gets offset by the surplus which we have in the hydrocarbon.
How exactly is the services sector expected to contribute to Qatar's non-hydrocarbon growth?
It's a huge amount of opportunity. See, 130 billion is the committed expansion for the next 5 years. That's in terms of infrastructure. You need to modernize, as I said, the infrastructure. It means terrific, value creation is required, integrating people, process, and technology, creating a road, again, transportations. These are the areas you need modernization, schools, healthcare. That's the trend we are seeing in the Gulf states as a whole, whether the UAE or Saudi, Kuwait. Qatar is not an exception, and you have huge government expenditure has been put it as a fiscal outlook, and government budget is going to drive. Last year alone, 210 billion Qatar Rial has been budgeted, and that's going to bring changes which are responsive to create good infrastructure.
What would be the role of manufacturing in Qatar's non-hydrocarbon sector?
Manufacturing, that's going to go slower. We know Qatar has got huge conserved resources of oil and gas, and we have production and distribution of oil nearing a million barrels, but again, LNG, long-term dispatch, diversification and distribution strategy has been signed. Production has been, Qatar Gas and Rosgas is producing, petrochemical companies are shaping up, 3 industrial estates are really in active swing, and manufacturing in overall terms, it will be between 6 to 6.5% will be the overall trend.
What is the inflation outlook for Qatar?
Inflation should be between 3 to 4%. When I say the wide ranging between 3 to 4, it will be coasting between 3.5 to 3.6. If you look at the cost breakdown, the headline inflation apart, the core inflation, if you look at, it's happening only on the housing, and there were constructive increase because of the inflow of people, and with so much project space, you will have more populations coming in. It's not significant in big numbers, but as a percentage, we will have not less than 200,000 people coming in, blue as well as white collars, and they are going to have residential needs, and again industrial accommodation is required for the laborers to sit in there. So all sort of the inflation impact will come on the housing side. Labor accommodations, residential accommodations, first 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms, those are the requirements immediately. Food is under control, fuel is under control, and again the rest of the other ingredients for the basics are all integral under control.
Could you tell us about the fiscal outlook for Qatar?
Fiscal outlook, the budget has been good. The new finance minister is setting a new kind of vision. He wants to foresee the budget for not only for 2014 and 15, he wants to see what will happen to 16, 17, 18. At least you need the direction. He wants to see line by line the government expenditure. He wants to see the overall possible expansion in the cost breakup, capital as well as revenue. And that's what exactly required in terms of predicting the overall growth momentum. Capital expenditure which are required for urbanization and also FIFA 2022 has to be scaled, and timing of these expenditure is equally important, and so that the payment systems will be efficient and streamline the process. So that's the major change. And again, government expenditure will be much more than last year, and the government will go through a non-hydrocarbon, as I said, in the deficit, hydrocarbon surplus. Overall, that could be very marginal current account surplus, and fiscal surplus will be bare minimum. Perhaps it might run in a deficit in the years to come.
Could you tell us about the balance of payments outlook?
It goes in same order. If you look at the receipts and payments and export import, the bigger picture is the oil and gas money which are emanating from outside Qatar will be redeployed to have diversification as a structured solution in multiple markets, multiple segment. The excess over the budget again will be deployed for future generation fund for sustainable reasons. Now, if you look at the cost breakup last year, the revenue breakup, the non-oil investment revenues have moved significantly from 56 billion to 80 billion. We see a very similar outlook for investment revenues. And similarly, when it comes to the oil and gas, it is diversifying. That's because of that reason, if you look at the oil and gas as slowly but steadily regressing. So 50% will be oil and gas, non-oil will be 50%. That's what the scene we are foreseeing in the coming days.
What is the outlook specifically for the banking sector?
Banking has done well. The capital adequacy has been an average for all the commercial banks, all the banks put together in total, commercial as well as Islamic put together 15%. The bad books are under control, 2%, and they have been adequately provided more than anything else. They have risk reserves to face the difficult and bumpy rides. Certain sectors needs to be ironed out in terms of overall prudential risk, and that is being mapped for contract financing. And the overall credit expansion, I foresee between 10 to 15%, 12 should be the average. And when it comes to the real estate, it is under control. Consumer financing will take 5 to 10% growth with purchasing power. Affluence of the society is improving, and inflation, as I said, if it is moderated, the purchasing power parity will come, and in disposable income, investable surplus in the hands of the common man will come in. So retail expansion will be between 7 to 10%. And when it comes to Islamic banking, they are all developing as normal, like any other form of business. And when it comes to liquidity, the market has been liquid. We have sufficient cash flows generated on account of the investable surplus, current account surplus, and the government is taking the excess liquidity in the form of the government bonds and government expenditure will be funded mostly by local banks in the local market space. So, interesting scene has been set for banks to have a decent turnout, decent returns, good profitability, good liquidity.
Could you tell us about the risks identified for the Qatar economy?
Risk is diversification as a structured solution, so you need to keep moving. In the event of gas price, there's a glut in the gas price, which I foresee not necessarily will happen because of the Ukraine crisis and other overall gas supply is required for emerging market. So I don't foresee it, but that's the risk which you have to anticipate. And again, the payment systems needs to be streamlined to make sure that the urban development is not stagnated on account of payment mechanism, so that the cost escalations will not overrun in overall capital expenditure. That's the key.
What would you say are the key policy challenges and priorities for the Qatar economy?
Policy changes is to make sure diversification as a structured solutions. Vision 2030 has been set in growing affluence and human development and economic development as a synchronized mission. So we need to distribute the wealth in the form of disposable income and purchasing power to the common Qataris, and that should happen as a policy framework. Good education, that's the real wealth. Long term, that's going to be the wealth, and that's what precisely Qatar should embark, and they should drive everything towards building the knowledge society. More and more investments on healthcare, making sure the life expectancy of the average Qataris is moving up to 100 years perhaps. If you have first class medical systems, if you have good healthy habits, sports activities, and again given the good education support, I think Qatar policy reorganization is worth the price. And when it comes to global international makeup, there's no significant change in terms of the policy directions. Qatar is a unique country, and policy framework is converging in politics, economics, and socio fabric.
And what are the key structural issues in Qatar?
Structural issues are, as I said, we need realignment in terms of execution. Again, making sure e-government comes in total respects. Competitive index, Qatar should be the best place to work, best place to do business, best place to live. So the indicators are very important. These indicators needs infrastructure creations. You cannot have reorganization. If you look at the World Economic Forum, that's at about 12% or 12th rank, I should say, in the overall government of opportunities. We need to move still to single digits. It means we need more liberalization, single window clearance, and again, making Qatar competitive needs a lot of infrastructure, policy reorganizations to promote the business, promote international investments, inward investments for Qatar. Those changes will come out of changing the policies to suit to the international benchmarks which are required.
Thank you, Dr. Seetharaman.
My pleasure. Thank you.